Welcome to the final episode of the UK Fantasy Football Show, Goals podcast that discusses many a football fan's favourite pastime. I'm your host of sorts, Miles Chambers, and I'm joined as ever by Sam Brown and David Milner. It was a surreal ordeal of a season, but it's finally over, and we'll be looking back at the FBL heroes and zeros, our terrible predictions and genius calls, plus how our show and our public standings finished. But first off, let's do a quick recap of our UK Fantasy Football Show final standings between the three of us. And congratulations to Sam, our 2020 champion. How does it feel to be the winner?
Hang on, I'm just going to adjust my screen. So, yeah, good.
For our podcast listeners, he's wearing a champion jumper.
I just needed you to say that, Miles, as well. Thank you.
They knew already. If they've listened to every episode, they would have known already.
It feels good. It was a long season. I don't think it was ever really in doubt. Obviously, I aided the narrative by being bottom of the first week. Dave was top of the first week. And, you know, as great stories go, you don't know where the twists and turns are going to go. But you end up with the ultimate payoff and that feeling at the end that the right thing happened. So, yeah, I enjoyed it. It was good fun.
That's good. I'm very happy for you, Sam. It's not facetious at all. It was very Liverpool-esque of you, though, wasn't it, this season? You pretty much dominated for... I think you must have been top all this year. I can't remember when exactly you sort of leapfrogged me from second, but you were top for a long time. So, worthy winner.
Thank you. It took me a while to get past you both, like maybe a couple of months, and after that, I just kept on chipping away at it, like Mac Atherton against South Africa in like 1998. 185.
What a reference.
Yeah.
Rob Parrish will appreciate that one.
Yeah, I think he batted for like 10 hours, got maybe 185 runs, and saw England through, probably for a draw, not a victory. I got.
That sounds more like England, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice obscure reference for our young readers, listeners even.
Cricket when I was born, yeah.
It's an education, it's this podcast.
At the other end of the table, admittedly the small table, Dave, you squeaked out 47 points in the final game week, and you succumbed to a bronze medal in the end. And it kind of fell away from you, didn't it, in the latter week of the season?
Yeah, it really did, in quite a colossal way. Compounded by the fact I dropped Kevin De Bruyne as well in the last week, and he really showed up.
Brutal.
And yeah, putting Mo Salah in and him being on the bench felt like quite a cruel way to finish what I consider a relatively successful season for myself. Despite the fact I finished bottom of our mini league, it's probably the best I've ever done in an FPL season. So I would I'm still taking away that positive. I was top very briefly. I managed to regain second spot for a little bit longer than I expected. I don't know if I was ever really getting close to Sam at any point or not, but it was, you stormed in and you had a sensational couple of weeks. And yeah, it's all justified in the end. The league table does not lie.
I don't know. I think it exaggerates it slightly in my favour because if it wasn't for those two very, very strong game weeks that I fluked out the bag at the end, 100 points in my last game week on game week 38, which I think was the highest I got all season. The previous high I had was 99 points. So I did end with a beautiful little flourish there.
Yeah, it was great. I'm just looking at the July standings. You were 86 points ahead of Dave just in July, Miles.
Sounds about right. It was a strong final month for me. But I'd been weak for, well, I was going to say a few months. Obviously, no football happened in April or May, but it was, I think, Dave, you overtook me on the last match week before the lockdown hit. So you were there for quite a while as a result, but, you know, it did look like you were going to sort of hold on to that second place until right at the end.
It was really strange, wasn't it, that? And I think it was the same for a lot of the teams returning. It was really difficult to then say who the form players were. You could kind of see it before lockdown. And as you go through the FPL season, as you watch the games, you are looking at certain players and you're seeing them rack up scores and hit a run of form. And once that break hit, it was like starting over again at the start of the season. Unfortunately for me, it wasn't anything like my start to the season.
Yeah, I was going to say, you did shit this time, didn't you?
Yeah. So that was clearly just a fluke.
Hey, but Dave, I would say it's all about taking part. It's not. It's definitely about winning. But you tried your best, and that's all we can ask of you. And you did
Thank
a
you,
really,
Sam.
really good job. We're all really proud of you.
Thank you. I appreciate that patronising sentiment.
Oh, yeah. Do you know what patronising means?
Oh,
it means,
yeah.
It's when you talk down to someone.
He's rolling out all the lines.
All the greatest
Final
hits
parts.
are here. Yeah, all the greatest hits.
I don't even need to go back and edit these in.
The final standings that we have, just for reference. Sam got top, as I said, with 2,190 points. I finished second with 2,122 points. Dave finished third with 2,058 points. So there was a pretty much even gap between the three of us there, I guess. Over in the UK Fantasy Football Show Public League, Graham Wilshaw, magnificently named the Shola System, claimed top spot with 2,467 points, which is a not insignificant, I did the maths earlier, took me a while, 277 points more than our show winner, Sam.
Wow.
He was ranked 152nd in the world, which out of, I think it's 7.6 million players, is pretty fearsome.
Unbelievable.
Very
Well
good
done.
effort from Graham. And special shout out for Meen Al-Islam as well, who looked strong all year. He couldn't quite hold on. I think he was top for the majority of 2020, but he fell away to Graham's excellence at the end. And he finished, I think it was about 20 points behind Graham. But, neither could quite match world chess champion Magnus Carlsen, who gets another special shout out because he finished in the top 20 in the world. And I do love that he has former number one FPL player in his Twitter bio, right alongside world chess champion. Sam, are you going to add anything in your bio around this magnificent win? You're not going to gloat?
No, because I think people will just take it as read that I was the champion of this. I might make a little certificate, frame it. So, just in like 20 years' time, I can sit the kids down and tell them about how it went down.
Make them listen to every episode.
Not a bad idea. I've got some new lullabies for you guys. I've got some new lullabies. This game week 4 where Daddy's really angry about John Lundstrom not being in his team.
Oh, wait. Daddy's just about to say, do you know what patronising means? It's great.
Podcast listeners, YouTube viewers, a huge thanks to you, all of you who listened throughout the season. There were 2,250 people who participated in our league, so I hope you all did well. Tweet with the hashtag UKFFS to let us know your standings in our table. Let's move on then. So before we rip into our predictions, which I'm going to do plenty of, I wanted to look back at some of our heroes and zeros for the FPL season. So I asked each of you to come up with a few potential candidates for that. We'll go through the heroes first. Sam, as our champion, you can kick us off. Who is your hero for the season?
I've got a top 3, okay? But I'll start with my gold medalist, which was Kevin De Bruyne. I had him from week 1, and he didn't leave my team all season because he was only 9.5 mil, which I've got the receipts for these backed up by some of the old episodes where I said he would reclaim his position, his rightful position as the best player in the Premier League, and I think he did that. Top point scorer, and he was only 9.5 mil. So yeah, Kevin De Bruyne took a boo. And I think he crowned off his season in the most wonderful style with that goal at the weekend, it was nonchalant, it was charismatic, it's everything you want in a footballer and football as a whole. Brilliant.
He was robbed of the best player of the season for the Football Writers Award instead of Jordan Henderson, who, top bloke though he surely is, great leader though he undoubtedly is. If you're trying to judge on technicality alone, how can you look past Kevin De Bruyne? He's just been magnificent this season.
Yeah, it stank of a similar way that Giggs won the PFA Player of the Year, which, as I think I'd said to you the other day, it was akin to a retiring cop getting a gold watch at his retirement, having worked the forest in Miami. I felt similar with Jordan Henderson. I don't think, out of all the Liverpool players, that have probably picked Trent as the guy to get it. But I think as a single amazing performer through the season, it was De Bruyne all day long.
Totally agree. Who else have you got as your other three?
Oh, you want me to do my other ones? Okay, I didn't want to steal any of yours, but I'll rattle through them.
You rattle, mate.
My main man, Anthony Martial, gets my silver medal. Obviously, he had a wonderful restart, game week pluses. The fact he was listed as a midfielder obviously benefited him hugely. He finished on 200 points. And he only started as 7.5 mil, and right back from the start we were saying that 7.5 mil for someone who is likely to be Man United's central striker, that's a bargain. Obviously it wasn't as much of a bargain until Fernandes joined, but since then the relationship he's built up with Fernandes and Rashford and Greenwood to a degree as well has been sumptuous. And he only finished 4 points behind Raheem Sterling, who, what did he start the season as, 12 million, 12.5? So yeah, Martial was epic and finished strongly, much like myself. And then a bit of a basic one for my bronze medal, it's John Lundstram. Someone that, I think I got him in game week 2 maybe. A lot of people had just stuck him in as a filler because he was 4 mil. Never expecting him to be playing. Never expecting him to be playing in midfield, even though he was listed as a defender.
Is that what you did? Be honest. Or did you see his potential?
I just saw that he'd got some points in the first few weeks and I thought, fuck it, let's go for it. And yeah, he was amazing. I think I transferred him out towards the end of Jan-Feb. I'd used him for his use. I'd got all the use out of him basically, and he's only got a bronze medal because he's done very, very little since football restarted. He's got 16 points since the restart, which that's pony. I think probably Sebastian Haller's got more than that. So amazing, as long as you dropped him at the right point. I think he did have one great game week in the restart, but as soon as I think was it Sanderberg, Sheffield United signed in January, he kind of took a lot of that. A lot of the spots that Lundstram was earmarked for. So yeah, I don't think he'll be anywhere close to being as prolific next season. But John, it was good while it lasted.
It was. I was looking before at the different statistical data available on FPL. And I think he was the second best value of any player throughout the season. And I'm sure if he kept up the form we saw in the sort of first half, maybe even first 2/3 of the season, then he would have been the most valuable player in terms of form. But obviously, as you mentioned, he did drop off a fair bit. Do you know who the number one best value player is on FPL this season?
Is this points per pound?
Yeah.
I will go with Nick Pope.
Dave, any thoughts?
No idea.
Or John Egan.
You changed your mind. Well, it is Nick Pope. So.
Good. I was going to say John Egan is probably second, but otherwise it will be Nick Pope. Interesting. Okay. I never had Pope all season. I had Tom Heaton up until he bust. I had Alisson for the first week, obviously. Then he got injured. Then Tom Heaton, and then he got injured, and that's when I brought Dean Henderson in, and it was Hendo pretty much for the rest of the season.
He was third most valuable.
He only finished, I think, 10 points behind Pope. I think Henderson's a better keeper. I would have him as England number one. Personally,
I would have Pope. I'd have Pope all day.
Well, it's a good job you're not the bloody manager of England, then, isn't it?
Yeah, well, Jordan Pickford's number one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for those then, Sam. Dave, did you have any heroes you wanted to run through?
Yeah, I think my hero was. It's a bit of a strange one because
don't say me, Dave. Don't say me. Don't say me.
You'll like it anyway, Sam. It was Bruno Fernandes because I think he offered me hope when all hope looked lost. Much like Manchester United, actually. He came in and he made a massive difference. It was a bit of a gamble throwing him in because obviously he was an unknown. But at that stage, it was probably, what the hell type situation.
How soon did you bring him in?
I think I got him in. He started game week 25. I think I put him in game week 26. But he only scored 2 points in game week 25. He did play the full 90 for United, and that was against Wolves.
Do you know why? I know actually why you put him in on game week 26. Because you copied me, because I put him in on game week 25. Yeah, right. Just always one step behind.
That must have been why. Yeah, and it must have been that 2 points.
Yeah.
That's the right decision. Anyway, it's a gamble worth taking, and what a finish to the season for him as well. Racked up 117 points in FPL.
That's ridiculous, isn't it?
So 8 goals, I think he scored. Was it 8 in total? 7 assists, maybe.
I think he might be the way around.
So it's it is what he is. I think everybody knows. I think everyone's got high expectations for him now. I think going into next season, it'll be interesting to see whether he can continue this now. Because we have seen flashes of brilliance from lots of players in Premier League, and then they've not followed it up or they've not kept it consistent. Obviously, the great ones are the ones that produce that season after season. He certainly seems level-headed enough. I haven't really seen any arrogance from him on the pitch, other than the fact he knows his own ability, and he just seems to make an impact. So it looks like he could be a good one going into next season's FPL as well. I'm sure he'll be on, assuming he's fit. I'm sure he'll be a first pick for a lot of people. Probably will be for me as well. And United in general look like a much stronger team with him in it. Certainly since Pogba returned as well. It all seems to have come together quite nicely for them. Yeah. My hero of the season will be him.
If you averaged Bruno's score out over the season, and he played 90 minutes of every match, he'd have amassed 317 points. Which,
God,
yeah.
And the top point scorer was De Bruyne with 251. So
yeah, that's how good he's been.
Well, De Bruyne was going to be my hero. Obviously, he is the top point scorer in FPL, but Bruno was my backup because both of them have just been such difference makers. Obviously, neither have won the Premier League. That's with Liverpool, but Liverpool, their team is much more of a sort of full-rounded team. All of them are really good. There's strong players throughout that team. Whereas with De Bruyne, he is the standout for Man City. You're right with Martial being impressive. I think the reason Martial is kind of such a good pick, I suppose, is because he's a midfielder who plays as a striker. Whereas you would still say, for me anyway, that Bruno Fernandes was the difference maker in that Man United team.
Oh, hugely,
It's probably a little bit too simplistic to say he came in and then everything was rosy and brilliant. They'd clearly worked on a lot of things that sort of bore fruit towards the second half of the season. They obviously, in the first half of the season, were still able to beat some of the big teams, but they just couldn't sort of do away the lesser ones.
See, I'm still unsure as to whether they really do very much attacking training. I'd still get this real feeling that Solskjaer relies on the fact that Martial, Rashford, Greenwood, and now Fernandes and Pogba now is back as well, are very street footballery, and they just rely and play on a lot of instinct rather than any specific pattern plays that you see, like especially City coming up with. And Fernandes really made that tick because he was passing it forward. He was trying passes that Fred, Matic, my boy McToms didn't or couldn't do, and that's the difference that he brought to it, that allowed either players to get round the back or a much faster interchanging of passing. yeah, they just seem. I can't believe there was some little thing in training that just made them so much more fluid. I'd put 80-90% of it down to being Bruno related, mixed in with the confidence and sprinkling of luck.
Sprinkling, nice little sprinkling.
Yeah, they're all quite instinctive players, aren't they? That United attacking force, and that's when you get those moments of brilliance when you see that. It's just it just makes them 100% more better. Just makes them 100% better to watch than the United we saw at the start of the season, actually, and from last season. Yeah.
Well, what about your zeros then, Dave? You said you had a selection of people who you would plump into
there's so many. There's so many. So I think one of the ones I was going to mention was Ross Barkley, who a few of us at the start of the season were expecting something from him. I don't think I was one.
I was. Yeah. I'll nibble, Dave. I'll nibble. Yes, I do remember proclaiming that Ross is boss. In pre-season, he was evidently on penalties, and yeah. Hey,
he finished with 61 points.
We all get him around every now and then, don't we?
Yeah, it's actually more points than I thought he'd have got. I think he had a flurry a few weeks ago.
Yeah, he did.
Amassed a few points, but I don't know. Again, is he going to be somebody that they stick with again for next season and see if he does kind of start producing on a consistent basis?
I think they've got to sell him.
Players like him, you can just. I think you can smell it a mile off. There just isn't the consistency there for the top flight. If you want to compete in the top six, for instance, Ross Barkley is a Premier League player in my opinion, but probably not for one of the top six teams. So other mentions. I mean, it's difficult to. Paul Pogba would have been one that would have been right up there, but he's saved face, being reintroduced back into the team and looking more like a United player again. All the stuff that went on with his transfer, the agent, and all the stuff behind the scenes, it was such a shame because we've all seen like the Paul Pogba that won the World Cup, the massive influence on that World Cup winning team for France in Russia. That's the one we want to see in the Premier League.
But we've not seen that for 2 years though, have we? He played 9 games in the restart. He got 2 assists and a goal.
Yeah.
If you put
that's why it's disappointing, isn't it? Because you're just like
for an 8.5 million striker. As in fancy prices, of course. Although some people may argue that's what it's worth now. Then I'd be transferring, and I think everyone would be transferring him out straight away. Pretty crap return. I thought he was borderline okay since he's come back and started playing again. He has the odd little highlight reel moment per game, but he loses the ball. He's not scoring. He's not assisting, and I wasn't overly impressed with him since he's been back.
Do you think he'll remain part of United's plans going into next season then?
Yeah, I don't think anyone's got the money to buy him. And I think he will just give everything towards United because I don't think he's the downing tools kind of guy. So I think he will, have a good season next season. I don't think he is a top 10 player in the world by a long stretch, but I think he'll still be at Old Trafford next season, and I think he'll do pretty well because I think the only teams that you could feasibly see buying him are Juve, PSG, or Real, and I don't think any of them have got any money, especially the kind of money that United would be expecting for Pogba.
Yeah, that's true. Another player I had on the list was Pepe, who I called out at the start of the season as a flop and truly delivered. Amassed 106 points, which for an attacking winger type player, you'd want to see a hell of a lot more points on the board.
That's less than Bruno.
So yeah, that's less than Bruno Fernandes. And yeah, Pepe, I mean, just looking through the season, he was there was points where he was in and out of the team a little bit. Probably as they realised
he's not very good.
Zero impact. There's those players that people, and I don't like this because I quite like flair players, but a lot of fans get on flair players' backs, with all the step overs and things like that, and it can be a bit like, oh, what's he doing type thing. But he really doesn't produce in the final third. So he's got skill, he's got pace, but
no end product.
When it comes to vision, he hasn't got any vision at all. What's going on around him.
I'm going to defer to Miles here as the arbitrator. Okay, you did say at the start of the season you thought Pepe would be a flop, but I would like it on the record that you changed your tune hugely through the season. I think he scored a free
kick. Pepe?
Yeah, I think he scored a free kick, and you were like, yeah, he's in. He's changed. I think he's going to have a really good season. He just needs to bed in. He just needs to bed in.
I have never said,
you bloody have
said that about him.
To the point, you said he would have a. I think you.
You can't just start making stuff up.
I'm not. So yeah, I think it was the beginning of January. You said he would, the 9th of January, if you're interested, that he would.
I've got the minutes.
He would go through and actually have a really good finish to the season. I think he also scored one where the ball essentially bounced off him and went in, and that was another thing that he used to justify that he would be a reformed character in the second half of the season. So
I'll hold my hands up and say I thought he was going to do much better than he did this season. I seem to remember us having a colleague of ours on who claimed that he was a future Ballon d'Or winner, which was certainly the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
I won't name and shame him at this point.
You say a colleague as well, and it is somebody who should know a lot more about football than I do.
You know what? Like I was looking at the sort of best transfers of the season over the past 12 months, and it's quite striking how sort of minimal impact a lot of the transfers last summer had. A lot of the actual best signings of the season were people who did their loan move last season and signed fully this year. So I think there is a potential backing argument you could say with Pepe where it is a difficult transition sometimes coming into the Premier League from another league where you were the star player and all of a sudden, you're a top player among a sea of top players. So, and especially when you think about the fact that Arsenal's season has been a bit of a mess. They finished outside the top 7. They won't have European football unless they win the FA Cup final against, you would say, a more fancy Chelsea side. But at the same time, I'm not wholly convinced by my argument. He could just be a complete flop. But I think it's been a weird season, so maybe next year will be better.
I can't believe you're still both making excuses for him.
So I'm trying to claim that one.
I like to see the good in people, what can I say? Is there any more zeros you had, Dave?
I had Moise Kean down as one actually for Everton. Another guy that I think everyone had high expectations from coming in from Juventus, but just doesn't seem to be all there. But I do think Everton will thrive under Ancelotti, so it'll be interesting to see if he can have if he stays, if he can have a better season with Everton next season.
Yeah, he only got 2 goals this season, didn't he? I started him in game week 1, and I was pretty high on him. 53 points all season. And I was at the United Everton game. I think it was over Christmas, where he came on as a sub and then got taken off.
The ultimate swipe there.
And everyone was like, "Oh, is he injured? Is he injured?" And then Duncan Ferguson came out because I think they were between managers. Ferguson came through and was like, "No, it was just tactical reasons," which I think was code for he was shit. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a proper deep burn. To be honest, my 0 for the season is an Everton player as well. Gylfi Sigurdsson gets my vote. He was another player like Barkley who I thought could have a pretty good year. I think he smashed it last season. I had a little note here that says he scored 14 times in all competitions last season, did Sigurdsson. And this year, he's only scored 2 goals in the Premier League. He got 4 assists, which, to be honest, is more assists than I thought he'd got. He's been pretty dreadful. He got double figures in terms of FPL points. He had his worst season on FPL since 2014. So it's been a pretty dire year for him.
Did you both start him this season? I know you did, Miles.
I stuck with him for weeks, which is part of my resentment that is burning away in my chest.
I can't remember. I know we talked a lot about Everton. We expected Everton to do well. I can't remember if I did start him or not.
They had a really good start to the season in terms of the fixture list, but actually on paper, they were dreadful. I think they had a good finish to last season as well, which was part of the whole narrative that we had that Everton will be better this year. But they just started poorly. Obviously, changed managers. I don't know. We'll wait and see with Ancelotti. I think he's not had universal success everywhere he's gone. He was obviously hoofed out of Napoli, who weren't impressed by his league standing over there, even if they were still knocking about the Champions League. And I think did they beat Liverpool in the group stages? I think they did, didn't they?
I can't remember, mate. It was nearly a year ago. That
it just feel like a lifetime ago. But yeah, I think they were one of the only teams to beat Liverpool until Watford caused that bit of an upset. And but in the league it just wasn't as impressive with Napoli. And I think that Everton, the big problem they have is they churn through managers, they sign players and they throw money at problems. But because the solutions are all quite different, you end up with a team of players who are quite different in terms of their style, in terms of the way they approach matches, and you look at that team, it's just not a very strong team. And I think made a little note here, they finished 12th this season, right, which is their lowest position since 2004 when they finished 17th. Now, in 2004 when they finished 17th, they'd only finished in the top 10 twice in the Premier League since it was formed in the early 90s. But since that point, they've finished outside the top 10, I think, 3 times until this point, and each of those times it was 11th. So it really was a weak season for them. And looking at that Everton team, I do struggle to see how they can completely turn that around. I think that they're a mid-table team now, and that's it.
I think they'll actually really struggle next season. I think they'll be battling, maybe safe in the last day. Richarlison did an interview in Brazil. I think it was on Wednesday, maybe, saying that he's seriously thinking about leaving, and if an offer comes in, he's off. So if he goes,
he's their entire team. I mean, certainly the only player who's impressed me for them this season, other than, as I said that, I thought of Luca Digne. Other than them two, there's not really a lot of quality in that team.
I had a couple of flops that I'll just run through dead quick. Ryan Fraser, 73 points, 1 goal, 5 assists. Last season, 7 goals, 14 assists. I did counsel people about this at the start of the season, saying last season was a massive anomaly and he'll revert to form. I didn't realise his form was this bad. But yeah, he was rubbish. He didn't play during the restart. I think it was contractual issues. I think he's out of contract and left them now as well.
Yeah.
And Haller at West Ham, 7 goals, 40 million, 102 points, shite. I know there was one particular member of this group who said he was going to be brilliant, especially after I think he scored 2 goals and then 1 goal in 3rd and 4th games. Shows what they know. And Joe Linton.
Big J-Dog.
Yeah, I loved the idea of him at the start of the season, but it's just not been his. It's not his sport, is it?
It's not his sport.
I mean,
Wow.
it's been such a flop of a signing. Was it 35 million quid?
Something crazy like that, yeah.
Like there's like a little pocket of those sort of strikers who were signed last summer, who were signed to be the main number 9s, or certainly be in amongst it. So there was Wesley, Haller, Joe Linton, Keane, we've already mentioned, who just totally flops this year and have really struggled. And I guess those teams around them have struggled as well.
Yeah, it's tough job being at the business end of the park.
I'll kick us off with the predictions then. So my bold-ish prediction, which I couldn't decide on for a while, is that Arsenal will finish outside the top 7 again. Finished 8th this season. I know a lot of people saying that they do look better under Arteta. They're gradually turning that oil tanker of a corner. Obviously, they've got to the final of the FA Cup and they beat Liverpool recently, and they do look intermittently like a decent side. But I just think they're very inconsistent. They still have a dodgy defence, which, although there is some bright sparks like Tierney, I don't really rate him at all. Their midfield completely unimpresses me. Aubameyang, if he stays, then I'll probably rescind this claim a little bit because he is obviously a world-class striker, but it's likely that he's going to leave. And without him, their attack just isn't as good. And as we've already discussed, it's really, really hard to sign a good attacking player. There are so many failures. They saw it last summer with Pepe. They thought they were signing an absolute gem, and it's turned out to be not the case at all. And the big thing for me, I guess, it's probably not as relevant nowadays, but their highest paid player will be Mesut Ozil, which is laughable. He doesn't get quite as much press as he might have used to have done when he was constantly getting left out of the team. But he is basically like Gareth Bale at Real Madrid without the golf, really. He is a player who is on a vast amount of money and is doing absolutely nothing. And he's a good metaphor for Arsenal, to be honest, and the shape that team are in. I think that I'll qualify it with the fact that Arteta, he does look like he's doing a decent-ish job there, and he could still turn them around. Obviously, we saw with Man United with Solskjaer where they didn't look good for a while, but eventually they turned a corner. Maybe that'll happen. But I just look at all those teams above them, and I think that their starting 11 at least is stronger than Arsenal's in every single instance. Yeah. Leicester have fallen apart a bit, but they did have an injury crisis. And if they get their full strength team back, the likes of Pereira and Chilwell, who missed the end of the season, you would think that they will have another strong year. At least I do, anyway.
I've got a mishmash of points. The headline is Liverpool finished fourth. I think it was Michael Jordan said the easiest title to win is your first one. After that, just keeping the motivation up and that drive is really difficult. You've seen that the wheels have come off Liverpool since they won the title. And I think City will reclaim that top spot. I think they'll spend a few quid this summer, tighten up the defence, and there's a little umming and ahhing about what they do about Aguero because I think his explosiveness and he's starting to affect his body increasingly. I think they will still win the league. United will finish second. Bookmark that one, boys. Chelsea third, Liverpool fourth, Wolves fifth. There's your top five. You don't even need to bother watching next season. That's it. Done.
Call it in advance. Lovely.
Yeah.
I kind of see where you're coming from with Liverpool. I almost did something similar. I said they were going to finish third. That was one of my original predictions. But I changed my mind because I think you're right in that obviously there's going to be a drop in momentum from them having finally won this title after 30 years. But I do also think that it probably isn't too fair to judge them at this point of the season when they are so far clear. They're clearly going to drop a little bit in motivation. I still think, unlike Leicester, where it was all building towards that incredible title they won, their team is much stronger than Leicester's. And their manager is better than Ranieri. Klopp is a top manager. I think that Liverpool are very bristle to potential injury crises, such as if they lost Salah or Mane. Unless they sign a backup in that position, it's something that could be weak. They also need to sort out that striker. Obviously, they were going to sign Timo Werner, and then Chelsea ended up going in when they decided they didn't want to spend vast sums of money during coronavirus pandemic. But they're going to have to spend to get a good player, you'd think. Yeah,
and I think it's become pretty clear that Liverpool aren't going to spend and don't have that cash to spend. So yeah, they need to figure something out. I think West Brom and the playoff team will be relegated. I think Leeds will stay up. Bielsa will then leave, and Everton will survive on the last day of the season.
Wow, you've made a few predictions there.
Yeah, I've basically simulated the season in my head.
Lovely. I appreciate the effort. Dave, what have you gone with for your prediction?
Mine's like the polar opposite of Sam's predictions, and I put very little thought into it.
Someone will score the goal.
Based on my predictions from last season, the season just gone. It's not really worth bothering with, but I was thinking about. I really wanted. Sam's kind of done it a little bit, but I guess not at the same time. But I wanted to jinx Leeds by saying they would stay up, which will see them relegated, I'd imagine. But yeah, I had Chelsea down to finish second. I think Chelsea will challenge next season. So
I think they'll score the most goals. I think they'll score the most goals, but they'll probably concede.
You think they'll score the most goals?
Yeah, I think they'll score the most goals, but I think they'll probably concede like the 7th most.
Yeah, their goal difference is terrible for the team in 4th. It's dramatically different. Their goal difference is 1 up on Tottenham's. So they need to sort that out at the back. But what I like about Chelsea is they seem to either win or lose games, which kind of reeks to me a little bit of a team that just goes for it and sticks to their own kind of style of playing a bit.
Keegan style. Just try and score more than the opposition.
Exactly, yeah, which is great to watch. It'll be interesting to see how Timo Werner performs in the Premier League next season and what difference he makes to that side. They do need that. They do need that person up there, because that's where you look at the side at the moment and go, okay, Giroud, he's actually rescued their season towards the after it came out of lockdown, and when he played, they won games, and Giroud's got a lot of quality, but at this stage in his career, he's not really the answer, is he? Tammy Abraham, he's so raw, is Tammy Abraham, and I know we've had a bit of a go at him in the podcast over being a championship striker.
Sam.
Sam, yeah. Well, I kind of agree with it, because
there we go.
It is correct. He does score against the lesser teams in the Premier League. He can obviously play a part in a good team anyway. If Chelsea have got great players around him and everything like that, he's certainly got an eye for goal. He holds the ball up quite well and all that type of thing. But does he trouble the big teams? No, not usually. So Timo Werner might do that. So yeah, my bold prediction would be for Chelsea to finish second. I was gonna say Chelsea win the league, but when you look at it in reality, there's just no chance. The league is just between Man City and Liverpool for me, because those teams, as you can see from the league tables, they're just far and away the best sides in the Premier League. Man City, just need to strengthen a little bit. They scored 102 goals this season. It's just ridiculous. I can't see Chelsea scoring more goals than them even next season, because when City beat teams, they just absolutely
pummel them, don't they?
Yeah, and one of the players I was going to actually pick out, and I forgot to mention, a notable mention was Raheem Sterling, again for what's been a sensational season, and even off the field for him, he's been involved in some great stuff, and it's not detracted from his play on the field. It's talk about a big personality, handling big social issues, and also not letting that affect him on the pitch. What a man Sterling has been this season. And it's great to have him part of that England setup, and I think he'll be one of the leaders in that England dressing room going into the Euros next year.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think it is hard to see past City for next season. I think we probably all do agree that they do look like a strong side. It could be quite a good title race if Man City's defence isn't sorted out. But you'd imagine if they sort out the defence, then it's going to be pretty difficult for anyone to catch them.
We say it though, it's like it's a simple thing, and we've proved, and it has been proved that it's such a difficult area to get right. I mean, same with strikers, but getting those defenders who are, they're talking about signing Nathan Ake, for instance. I don't think he's Nathan Ake's he's a good Premier League defender, but I mean, he's no Virgil van Dijk. You could see Virgil van Dijk was world class when he played for Southampton.
Yeah.
Not seen that from Ake. So, I mean, God knows who the answer is, but Man City would be able to afford them if they were out there.
True. They have the money. A quick shout out at this point then to Goals Liverpool correspondent Neil Jones, who topped our One Week Wonders guest rankings. He bagged 77 points with his chosen team. It's not something we've done for a while, obviously, since the lockdown. It's just been the three of us. But it was great to have some of those guests on. So if any of you are listening, thank you for coming on. Also, commiserations to our Goals head of PR, Paul Raymond, who scored the lowest score with 32 points when he came on. And he also had one of my favourite moments of the podcast where he did his team backwards, like some sort of heathen.
Christ. That makes me twitch just thinking about it. Name was your team, Paul? Well, here's sub one. Here's a midfielder.
It makes me cringe just thinking back to it. But thanks, Paul, for that comedy gold. But last but not least, let's look back at some of our predictions this season. And I left this last because my predictions were mostly terrible. There were some good ones from you guys, though. But let's get this great call out of the way nice and early, because I highly doubted it for several months. But Sam, you never stopped believing that Manchester United would finish third. Here's a clip from the first game week of the show where you called it. I just think that, especially with how last season ended, and even how last season was as an entirety, like there were a lot of problems in that Man United side. And if they finished in the top 4, that's massive, in my opinion. If they finish in the top 6, that's expected. I can see them slipping out the top 6 this season.
Controversial. I disagree. Would you believe? I do disagree. I think they will finish 3rd.
So Sam, did you ever doubt your prediction, such as when United looked a little bit crap in the sort of first half of the season, or did you believe all the way?
I believed all the way. Yeah, there were times that I wondered whether I should still be quite so buoyant with it. But it was when you know Solskjaer, when you've experienced him, when he's giving you the highs, then you know that, again, similar to myself, not a great goal scorer, but a scorer of great goals, and a man for the narrative. He would bring it home. It's typical Ollie, really, leaving it to the last day of the season against the team you're battling for 3rd. So yeah, he's a good storyteller. He's a moment man, a memory maker. So yeah, basically, in summary, Miles, I was shitting it the whole way through.
I mean, we laughed, didn't we, when he said it? Because the United just didn't look like a 3rd place team. They were so far from that earlier on in the season that it was.
Well, having listened back
ridiculous.
to the episode where we made these predictions, I think I only made it because Miles had backed me into a corner by saying that Man United were going to be his flop team. So I was like, I need to go the opposite way.
Well, it worked out for you in the end, didn't it? And I looked like a lemon. In the relegation predictions, I also looked like a lemon. So I predicted Sheffield United, Crystal Palace and Brighton to go down, none of whom went down. I would say that all of us predict Sheffield United, so I think it probably was a bit of a universal thing that everyone thought they weren't going to do well, and they have done fantastically well this year. It really is a credit to them how well they've done. Top 10 finish in your first season up after being completely unfancied is really, really impressive. Dave, you picked 2 of the same. You went with Sheffield United and Brighton as well, but unlike me, you went for Burnley. Were you quite surprised at how well they did in the end? Finished 10th.
Yeah, I was actually, and I think all the unsettling kind of stuff around Sean Dyche at one part in the season seemed to be having a bit of a negative effect on them. But they've done really well. They're kind of one of those sides that constantly seem to defy the odds. In that, there's not really many players in that side you pick out as being sensational or anything like that. And are there any FPL picks necessarily in that team? Not that kind of spring to mind for me initially, but
Nick Pope.
Other than Pope, Pope, and I think defensively they're one of the teams, aren't they?
Yeah.
So it's fair play to them. I mean, Chris Wilder and Sheffield United, though. I mean, what a story! That's just been brilliant for me. And I just love how they've defied the odds. They've not spent a load of money on trash. They've stuck together as a team. And finished 9th, and it looked like they were even going to get a Champions League spot at one point.
Yeah.
So it was disappointing to see them not quite, but they haven't quite got the goal scoring threats, have they? They just needed a bit more up front. And it'll be interesting to see how they do again next season, because it's so hard to kind of keep this up in the Premier League, isn't it? So yeah, I was surprised. I did think Burnley and Brighton would be in trouble. There's been some pretty woeful. I mean, Norwich. I thought that they looked like a great team in the Championship, and I think this is a big warning for Leeds going into next season. Okay, because Norwich played exactly the same as what Leeds have played this season. Fast attacking football that put every Championship team on the back foot. That's what Norwich looked like in the Championship.
To quote you, Dave, you said Norwich will crack on.
Yeah, Norwich will crack on, which I thought they would, and I think this is what Leeds have got to be wary of. In the Championship, the teams you're facing can't handle that, but in the Premier League, it is standard fare to play that type of football, and
we saw that
Norwich have been unlucky with a few injuries and things like that, but yeah, they've been terrible. They'll look at the way they finished the season. They scored something like 1 goal in their last 10 games and shipped 24 goals. So that. And remarkably, they've not really picked up a lot of criticism for it either. I think everyone still likes Norwich and they like the football they play, but
I think it's partly because they have spent so little. Like, they haven't obviously splashed out on big money moves or anything. They do have some sort of decent players in that team, players who we identified earlier in the week who could potentially get poached, during the summer. But I guess if Leeds want to look at anyone, they should probably look at Newcastle for how they should adapt. Newcastle smashed the Championship when they went down, but as soon as they came back up, they played a really, turgid, to be honest, brand of football where it was all about defensive sort of solidarity and, keeping people from scoring. And that's how Benitez changed his mentality. Norwich didn't do that. We saw it in the first game of the season where they were going gung-ho against Liverpool. I think they lost 4-1, I want to say, in the end, but it could have been so much worse than that. And they were kind of lucky to score one of the few chances they had. So Leeds, really, as you say, they need to avoid that sort of trap because Norwich fell straight into it.
Yeah, they probably won't fall into it like Norwich have, in that they, Norwich had the kind of their identity very set, whereas Newcastle had been in the Premier League before and they knew what it was about, and they had an experienced manager at Premier League level as well, who knew what he needed to do. So sticking to your guns and being, this is our identity and everything like that. Yeah, I mean, it's all well and good, but then if you're losing matches and finishing bottom of the league, what's the point? Surely it's all about survival.
Yeah. Sam, you predicted that Villa would be your surprise team of the season.
Yeah, and I think if you look at it from I didn't say when in the season. If you look at it from
surprised on the final day.
Yeah, if you look at it from maybe 3 weeks ago, I think a lot of people are genuinely surprised that they've managed to survive. And you could you saw the faces of all the Villa players on that last day when the final whistle went, realising they'd done it, and wow, they were so surprised. They were the most surprised team. So
what a complimentary way of looking at it. I tell you what, in that instance then, I felt really bad that I predicted Everton as my surprise team of the season. But you know what, I'm going to bend those rules and say they were surprisingly shit. So, actually I was quite spot on. I do think with Villa though that they sort of risk. Well, which way do you guys think they'll go? Do you think they'll be like Huddersfield where they go straight back down, or do you think they'll be more like a Brighton where they kind of stay afloat for a few years?
I couldn't. I know this is rather unlike my previous form, but I couldn't really stick my neck out on that one. It could so easily go either way. I think they'll still be battling for relegation. And if they survive it this year, I think they'll be battling relegation the year after that. And if they survive that, I think they're just going to be one of those teams.
Yeah, I think it's harder for those like a club like Aston Villa. It's a massive club, and I think the expectation is dramatically different between the fans of Villa and your Brightons and your Burnleys, who will quite happily watch their team have no possession and soak it up and come away with a point, or scramble a win out of a game through even not having the ball. But I think when you're those teams at the bottom that are the bigger clubs, there's an expectation there that they take the game to the opposition a bit more. And I think that's probably something that did change after lockdown. The home fans don't turn up to those games expecting their team just to kind of like grind something out. They want to see something from them. I think just the level of expectation at a club like Villa is slightly higher. Jack Grealish looks likely to leave, so that could be a factor in that. How they've spent quite a bit of money though, haven't they? On people like Wesley, 22.5 million.
They spent over 100 million last summer, so
they're going to lose their best player, their captain, in Jack Grealish. It'll be a tough ask for them to stay up again, but who knows? Stranger things have happened, I suppose. Another prediction that you got slightly wrong, Sam. I just want to dwell on this a little bit because it's been so positive for you this show. Newcastle, you thought they were going to go down. They didn't.
They didn't. No, they did far better than I think everyone, including yourself, Miles, expected. So all power to Steve Bruce.
13th. To be honest, I would have probably put us about 15th, but.
Yeah, but your opinion is automatically invalid because you're a Newcastle fan, and most, if not all, Newcastle fans genuinely think Newcastle are going to qualify for the Champions League, retain the Ashes, and get gold medal in 100 metres.
See, I'm not going to entirely disagree with you there, but I do think that if you looked at their team, and Steve Bruce was the unknown factor here, because I think in pre-season they were pretty crap. But if you looked at their team on paper, it wasn't one of the bottom 5 teams. Like, for me, there were much worse teams in there. And so, really, if you look at the Newcastle have finished pretty much where they should. I think they are probably the 13th strongest team in the league. They finished just below Everton, a few points adrift of them. You would put them at the top of that kind of like relegation fodder bracket, and that's probably fair of what Newcastle really are as a team at the moment. Obviously, who knows what they'll do next season if they get bought out.
Do you know who Newcastle's top scorer was this season? John Joe. John Joe.
John Joe, who was the top scorer. He couldn't have got very much.
No.
I was thinking maybe it's Gale because he scored a few in the late stages, but I don't think he.
I'm happy to obviously take the plaudits when I win. I will also hold my hands up when I got things wrong. I got it really wrong with Joe Linton because I thought he'd get 7 goals this season, but he got 2. And a proper mess up. I thought my flop player was going to be Raul Jimenez.
Yeah, that's true.
So that was bad.
You had him in for a fair bit of the season, didn't you? Or did I imagine
No,
that?
it was only just towards the end. I started with Jota because he was $1 million cheaper and had finished the previous season stronger. So, yeah, I thought that was a very intelligent decision to make, and Jota didn't get any. I think he got 2 points for like the first 5 or 6 games, and I kept him all through that and then binned him, and I think he pulled in a few points a couple of weeks after that. But yeah, I wasn't really that hot on Wolves players until maybe lockdown, or the week before lockdown kicked in, when I started adding a few of their defenders in, and Saiss, Bowley, and then for the last 2 weeks, Doherty were ballers.
Yeah, they were
put
strong.
In a lot of points. I also noted we predicted our biggest surprise player. You had Ndombele, Miles, which was
crap.
Yeah, but again, if you want to spin it, it was a surprise that he didn't get anywhere near as much game time as I think his talent deserves.
He was really. I remember in the first 6 weeks he was quite prominent. And I remember he scored. Might have been against Villa early on, and I think that was where they came back and they were about to lose and they didn't in the end. But yeah, he completely went off the boil first under Pochettino, and then Mourinho didn't seem that interested in him. So it's a bit of a weird one because he was really, really impressive. But, when Spurs signed him for a massive amount of money, and he did look the part initially, but it just hasn't worked out for him. I think it's, again, similar to that kind of case that I made earlier, where a lot of players who are coming in from other leagues for their first season, they do have a bit of a transition phase, and it's just whether they can then get through that or whether it just kind of defines their Premier League career and they fuck off.
On the surprise players, I want to give a special shout out to my brother Dave for his choice of Scott McTominay, which again copied mine, where we both said he would sort of elevate himself to become that focal point of Man United's midfield, which he did until Bruno rocked up in that first half of the season. I think he was injured for about 6 weeks, and United went completely off the boil. And then he came back and just brought that level of energy, crowned it with that 70-yarder, maybe 80-yarder against City. And yeah, he's obviously not played quite as much as he was doing now that Bruno and Pogba are back in. But I think for that period where he was playing week in, week out, he was almost the beating heart of Man United. So maybe
he's a bit of a firefighter, wasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think maybe that ascent back into the Champions League spots was born from the sweat, guile and ingenuity of Scott McTominay.
You could argue that
he's still got a place in the United starting 11, or is he like going to be a backup for when they want to see a game out, get him on the pitch, put a few challenges in?
I think so.
Shore up midfield.
I think the biggest surprise of the restart has been Matic's form. He just fit, whether it's because Pogba's taking up a different role, and obviously he's got Fernandes there. He's been brilliant. he almost seems to want to pass it forward every single time, and he's splitting midfields and really making the team tick. Which I at the start of the season I was saying he was done, his legs were gone, and he appeared to show that in the first half of the season, even the first 2/3 of the season. So I think he's just under a 3-year contract. I can't really see him seeing that out. Matic has got that DMC role locked down at the moment. There's obviously Fred, there's McTominay. I think they need another 1 or 2 in there to give them some strength in depth, because you don't want Pereira coming in, you don't want having to play Lingard. So actually, I've obviously always been a massive fan of Jesse Lingard, and when I was watching the United-Leicester match at the weekend, United obviously scored their penalty, and I thought, Leicester have got to go for this. I think United will get them on the break. So I put some dosh on United to score the next goal. So I had my heart in my mouth, because Leicester obviously was just peppering De Gea's goal. And then my man, used to play with him, Kasper Schmeichel, made a mistake, helped me out. And Lingard, of all people, popped up with what I desperately hope is his last ever kick for Manchester United.
What a way to go out for you, though.
Yeah, and he made my bet come in. So, how does he do it?
Brilliant.
There's been some regular mentions during this show. It's almost like, for the fans of the show, we've turned this into UK Fantasy Football Show bingo, with Sam mentioning his
I used to play with Kasper
Schmeichel. Yeah, I think all I have to do now is mention Huddersfield Town for everyone to get a house.
We mentioned Leicester briefly there. I just wanted to go over one final prediction. So, Dave, you called Leicester as the surprise package of the season. So that was a good shout.
Yeah, only shout I made, I'd imagine. But yeah, they were, weren't they? I mean, ended up finishing 5th. So all fair play to them. They've got a great team, and when you look at their defence, Johnny Evans and Seun-Shu, I'm pretty sure like Man City would look at those two and think, I wish we had them as our centre backs, because they're better than their options, in my opinion. But yeah, they've got. The weird thing about Leicester was obviously the Vardy thing. He was kind of like an FPL favourite turned like an FPL regret, because he just went off the boil for so long in the middle of the season, which is quite frustrating. But they've players like Maddison and Harvey Barnes just look like great creative talents, and Leicester have actually got the financial clout to hold on to these players now. We've just seen with the new contract for Maddison as well, so it'd be interesting to see how they strengthen that team and then go into next season.
Yeah, I think they probably do need another striker because Vardy's getting on a bit. Iheanacho is not, the player you want trying to propel you into a top 4 place. But at the end of the day, 5th place, even though they did fall off 3rd and they were obviously flying high near the top around Christmas before they got smashed by Liverpool, it's still higher than we all would have predicted them finish. Well, maybe not you, Dave, but certainly higher than I would have thought they would finish this season.
Yeah, the weird thing about Vardy is as he gets older, he gets faster, which I'm not really sure how that works.
Defies the laws.
I've even seen Leicester players saying he's the fastest in training, and I'm like, how is that possible? They've got some rapid players in that team. They've got some young players in that team. So Vardy is a total anomaly. Fair play to him. It's a great story, and it's great to see him banging the goals in. But how much longer he can do that for, who knows?
Do you guys have any favourite moments from the season on the show? I think for me, I really enjoyed your VAR powwow. I can't remember how far into the season it was, and I know Dave doesn't enjoy me bringing it up very much, but it was great entertainment, I felt.
Yeah, that was good fun. Do you know what? Without wanting to sound like too much of a soppy sod, I just enjoyed it all. It was one of the was like the highlights of my week. In an international break, and we weren't doing one, I was like, I just want to go into a room and talk about fantasy football. I think the Just the general ascent of my team and descent of Dave's team has just made me smile all year long, if I'm honest. And
I can only take it as a compliment how much you've enjoyed it.
Absolutely, mate.
Seeing me fail.
And that it was almost like before the tape started rolling, and the horrendous mood that Dave would be in, effing and blinding all over the shop, kicking chairs over, throwing puppies. It was disgusting, but it was good to meet.
We've actually got a really good clip of to prove that I'm not the sulky one out of the three of us. Yeah. Let's roll that one. Let's roll that one now.
Roll it.
Go on then.
I remember, I think, Miles. Oh, fuck off.
Try that again.
Okay. I remember, I think we started it. Fuck off. I seem to remember us saying at the start of the season that we weren't as high on City. Fuck off. I think Liverpool have outperformed, but they've still had that incredible range of consistency in their players. I think if that stops, then just fucking cut that bit. I'm tired. Fuck off.
And I've also enjoyed it, and you know what? It's made watching the Premier League as well so much more enjoyable. There's been so many games where I've had a vested interest in matches where usually I just have it on in the background and not really pay much attention to what's going on. But if I had a player in that team, it's kind of what FPL's all about. If I had a player in that team, I'd be willing him on. And it's really made me stick at the whole FPL season as well, even though it doesn't look like it on paper.
It's funny how that's worked, though, isn't it? Because I will switch on goal alerts on my phone for the teams that I've got players in, and I find myself caring about the third goal in a Everton 3 Brighton 0 match, going, fuck's sake, Calvert-Lewin.
Yeah. It does add a bit of spice to the Premier League season, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Without needing to spend money like gambling or anything like that. It's good-natured, harmless fun.
Yeah.
But let's wrap this up for a final time. Dave, Sam, thanks very much for joining us throughout the season. You've been brilliant co-hosts. Podcast listeners, YouTube viewers, the UK Fantasy Football Show might be a one-season wonder, but our coverage continues across platforms for 2020-21. Make sure you join us as well for a once-in-a-lifetime Champions League and Europa League tournaments in August.
Fuck off! Fuck off! Fuck off! Fuck off! I think Miles. Oh, fuck off! Just fucking cut that bit. I think Miles. Oh, fuck off!